Hey everyone. So, right out of the gate, this episode gets into an idea that really resonates with me personally, which is self-sacrifice for the happiness of those you hold most dear. Like, the moment he learned what happened to Ginny, the moment he held Bonnie in his hands, that is the moment that Kuma became her father. Because, blood-related or not, Kuma just instinctively knew he had to give Bonnie a better life than the one he lived. Curse be damned, he wanted to make sure Bonnie knew that she herself was loved. Now, you're, and with Bonnie, it is interesting the parallels there of how in a similar vein to, this, they're not both the same, but in the same way that in the same way that Kuma lost his parents to the Celestial Dragons, Bonnie had lost her mother to basically the Celestial Dragons, like before she was even able to speak or understand the world around her. So it's like, yeah, that in itself would basically force Kuma to reckon that, yeah, he needs to do right, but basically Bonnie. And and now, you're obviously asking, why does this resonate with me so much? Well, even though obvious things like scenario and circumstance are vastly different, Kuma's relationship with Bonnie in a way reminds me a lot of my own dad, and how, looking at the way he raised me, he sacrificed a lot of his own happiness in order to make sure I could live the life I have now. Don't get me wrong. He still found things in life that made him happy, but he still sacrificed a lot of his core dreams in order to raise me, and that's very much the same thing with Kuma. What Kuma did for Bonnie, and what started, I think, as a pledge and a promise to Ginny, became something more. Kuma had become Bonnie's father. Blood be damned. Like, he just naturally fit into the role of just wanting to give her a life beyond what Ginny, and a life, and trying to protect her from what both Ginny and from both Ginny and what Ginny and he knew. Now, now, I guess, on a side note, and one thing I also really like is, early on in the episode, we also see that Kuma kind of, in a sense, you could say that Kuma kind of needed Bonnie just as much as she needed him, because as we see, like, from the beginning of the episode, after losing Ginny, Kuma kind of had become more reckless, more cold, having a lack of purpose to keep going on. But Bonnie, like, gave him that desire to keep living, and something he needed to protect, a family. And again, it's a really, again, it's in that simplicity of the idea of family, that where you can see how Kuma had kind of, in some ways, and how after in some ways, how after Ginny's disappearance and death, how he had become something a little more closer to akin to what his epithet of the Tyrant was. But it's only after he learned of Bonnie that he that the complete reversal of that had be, that the complete reversal of that had ended up happening. He became much more kind again, much more soft, much more caring. He he found purpose in his life again, like I said. And with that said, though, with Ginny's death, though, and her living 2 years being enslaved as a celestial dragon's wife, it really does show the utter cruelty of this world, and how those with power can do whatever the fuck they want. Like, Ginny was used and abused before she was even returned to the lower world. And in saying that, yeah, we got to talk about the Sapphire Scales, because much like how Bonnie gave Kuma purpose, you can see how it was Ginny's death that gave him resolve. The resolve to make sure what happened to Ginny would never happen to anyone else ever again, and especially not to Bonnie. Yet, ironically, it would be that this very thing that would set him on the path that would cause him to make the decisions he would to sacrifice himself, and that's a very and the sapphire skills in themselves are a very interesting comparison point at showing the darker side of science. Because yes, I guess pseudo. I don't know if it's a pseudo spoiler or whatnot, but the scales are a man-made illness, one concocted by, let's be honest, the world government and the world government, the fucking celestial dragons, basically all those upper class fuckwads. And when you really look at what happened to Ginny, it was all done just as an experiment. Ginny was used as a test subject with no regard for her life. Like there's like the government just has no, in terms of science and how it's utilized, the government just has no regard for human life whatsoever, or there's no regard to human life, no matter how much they mask that they're doing it to protect the world. Like and funny enough, in comparison, although he is reckless with his experiments, Vegapunk genuinely wants to do good for the world and people that call it home, and it's a very interesting looking back on this backstory and how even before Vegapunk makes his debut in this flashback, you see the two sides of how science can really clash. With Vegapunk, he wanted to make a better world, but with the government, with how they have no regard for human life, the world is just one giant like petri dish for them. It's one giant experiment in which they can conduct their science, their experiments, all that shit. Like it's really a very contrasting comparison. It's really a very clear contrast of just how science is viewed in this world, and who views it for good, who views it for not, just for experimentation. And I guess actually even before like the government and whatnot, we still saw this clear in Wano with Queen too, and even with Queen and even and Judge as well. With that said, the episode ends with the king of Sorbet Kingdom on his bullshit again, and I don't think I need to say this, but his return is, like, you could say, the turning point where Kuma truly does become the tyrant, so to speak. And so it's another instance of kind of truth being much different than you can see how this incident is going to be like that thing of truth being much different than fiction, because when it comes to Curry and the government, they are the ones who hold the power and the control over information, so you can clearly see how this is going to go. It's going to be basically Kuma fighting to protect his home, and in the process of that, he's going to be labeled the tyrant for his actions. Like it's hard to see how it's not hard to see how he got the moniker to begin with. In some ways, being known as the tyrant is actually kind of a badge of honor for Kuma, because protecting Sorbet would be one of the many burdens he would carry on into the present. Like, Kuma is at the core is a man who carries many burdens, and it's just he himself is just he was never able to let go of those burdens in a way. He was always trying to protect someone or something he cared about. And and it's interesting how that kind of met, how this point with Bakuri is going to be the start of how it all manifested. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Blue Sky and on Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight signing off. Later, everyone.